Well, hello, everybody. Good evening and a very happy Sunday to you today. Oh, why are you having streaming issues, stupid thing? Wait one. I'm going to try to close some things. See if that helps with buffering. Glad to have you guys here with me. We're going to be jumping in for another session of The Edge of Control by Cody Alaniz. We have been through quite a bit already as Alara Vaughn and Nova have grown together, learned together, and have been fighting foes together. And when I say fighting foes, I do definitely mean Orion. Orion has been basically the arch enemy of Nova since he discovered Nova, and has been doing all sorts of funky things to try to mess with the city, and Alarm and Nova have fought against him. So, very exciting. Very, very exciting. Yes. Um, Orion recruited a team to help him. And so Alara and Nova recruited a team to help them. And so it's been a big fight back and forth as we have gone forward. But so far, our protagonists, our heroes, our Nova and Ilara have been winning. They've been staying ahead. Ah, yes, as it all should be. That is how it is. So, we're gonna jump in with some more tonight, starting in chapter 51. Ah, Finn. Which also means we are over halfway through our reading of The Edge of Control. Our author, Cody, will hopefully be joining us. He's got a meeting, has meetings every night at about this time. Busy man. Will be coming along to join us on the YouTube channel a little bit later, so I hope you will consider stopping over there to check it out. And until then, you can live with me. Only me. Do you need more, though? I am really all you need. Love is all you need. So, sit back, everybody, relax, and prepare to enjoy as we dive into an evening of The Edge of Control. And I hope you guys are ready to enjoy as we go through. Please feel free to engage at any time with the chat with me, even if I am not able to answer because, reading and all, and I record these. I will be happy to jump in and answer questions as soon as I am able to. And you were always welcome to talk to each other. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started for the evening, shall we? Full screen so I can see just a little bit more. Make sure my things are working, and they are. And here we go. Chapter 51 Echoes of Deception. The calm after the fractured grid was deceptive. Sublevel 3 had stabilized. Field teams had returned, and city systems were humming with restored efficiency. Yet Alara Vaughn knew that peace was temporary. Orion's tactics had, and his signature was always subtle: manipulation, deception, infiltration, psychological warfare. He was patient, waiting for cracks to appear in defenses, for trust to falter. Alara's eyes lingered on Nova's interface, the neural network's pulse steady but insistent, scanning patterns of potential internal disruption. Alara, Nova said, voice measured but urgent. Analysis indicates elevated probability of internal compromise within your operational team. Emotional vulnerability and loyalty deviations have been detected. Recommendation: enhance personnel monitoring and verification protocols. Her chest tightened. Nova was detecting something she had suspected but didn't want to acknowledge. Orion wasn't just attacking the city's infrastructure. He was attacking the human element, targeting trust, exploiting doubts, and planting seeds of uncertainty. Run me the data, she said, tapping across the console. Graphs, logs, and behavioral patterns filled the screens. Nova highlighted subtle deviations, minor inconsistencies in field reports, delayed responses to urgent messages, anomalies in access logs, and micro changes among team members. Nothing overt, nothing definitive, but enough to suggest Orion had begun to infiltrate psychologically, perhaps even planting an agent within their ranks. Lena, Alara said, calling over secure comms. Verify every team member's loyalty, access privileges, and recent communications. Check for anomalies in behavior and ensure compliance with secure protocols. No exceptions. Understood, Lena responded. Her voice carried a tension that matched Alara's. We'll start immediately. Meanwhile, Dr. Cale Verdon was reviewing encrypted messages intercepted during the previous attacks. He noted subtle patterns, unusual coding sequences, timing inconsistencies, and metadata anomalies. Orion's digital fingerprints were present, but intertwined with human interaction in a way that made it difficult to discern the operative from regular activity. Alara, Verdon said quietly, he is playing a game on multiple levels. Physical sabotage, digital intrusion, and now psychological manipulation. We're not just defending systems, we're defending against deception itself. Alara nodded, her mind racing. Orion was testing them, probing weaknesses and exploiting every uncertainty. A single misstep, an unverified order, a misinterpreted communication, a lapse in trust could compromise everything. Nova, she said, initiate continuous monitoring of communication and behavior. Highlight deviations from baseline patterns. Predict infiltration points, both physical and psychological. The neural network pulsed. Millions of variables in real time. Subtle anomalies emerged. Minor hesitation in verbal responses. Slight delays in message. Changes in eye tracking behavior on surveillance feeds. And uncharacteristic activity on secure terminals. Alara, Nova reported. Probability of internal operative presence, 42%. Identity cannot be confirmed with certainty. Suggest targeted manipulation of field decisions. Recommendation: isolate and verify all high-risk personnel. Alara leaned back, tension coiling in her chest. Orion had entered a new phase. This wasn't about destroying the city's infrastructure anymore. It was about destabilizing the people responsible for defending it. He understood human psychology, and he was exploiting it with precision. Lena, Verdon, she said, we run a controlled verification protocol. Every team member must undergo secure behavioral and access audits. We isolate anomalies without alerting potential infiltrators. Nova will monitor continuously for signs of deception. The audits began. Teams were subjected to simulated scenarios, testing responses under stress, loyalty, and problem solving. Access privileges were temporarily revoked and reinstated under observation. Every interaction, decision, and reaction was recorded, analyzed, and cross referenced. Hours passed and subtle cracks began to emerge. One team member, previously dependable, showed hesitation following digital containment orders. Another displayed anomalies in communication logs, failing to respond promptly to secure messages. While none had committed sabotage, the deviations suggested external influence, a psychological nudge designed to weaken cohesion and create doubt. Alara, Nova said. Pattern recognition suggests external coaching or subtle cue. Operative likely embedded within field operations, guiding decisions indirectly. Probability of intentional disruption, 68%. Alara's mind raced. Orion was orchestrating this with surgical precision. His goal wasn't chaos for its own sake. It was to fracture trust, destabilize morale, and turn the defenders into liabilities. We need to flush him out, she said, determination hardening in her voice. Set a controlled scenario. Create a simulated critical failure that would require immediate action. Observe responses. Monitor for hesitation or guidance from outside the team. The scenario was implemented. A simulated energy node failure in a high-density sector was triggered. Backup systems were disabled, forcing rapid decision-making. Field teams responded, following protocol, but subtle indicators began to emerge. One operative delayed critical steps. Another questioned verified data unnecessarily, while others attempted to circumvent secure channels. I see it, Lena said through the comlink. He's guiding them. Subtle clues, timing, questioning, designed to throw us off without revealing himself. Nova highlighted the anomalies, pinpointing moments of deviation, and traced potential external communications. The analysis suggested a human element in the chain, an orchestrator feeding information covertly, influencing decisions without leaving overt traces. Alara, Nova said. Probable internal deception confirmed. Identity of primary influencer, 72% match to field operative designation, Unit 12A. Verification recommended. Alara's heart sank. Unit 12A had been one of the most reliable operatives, a trusted presence in every high-risk mission. The possibility that Orion had infiltrated their ranks was both shocking and terrifying. Isolate Unit 12A immediately, she ordered. Suspend all field operations and communication privileges. Conduct full psychological evaluation and secure digital audit. Minutes later, the operative was discreetly removed from active operations. A battery of tests and monitored interactions began, designed to flush out any external influence or latent sabotage. Nova monitored every signal, every micro-behavioral cue, and every digital transaction, creating a comprehensive profile of anomalies and probable influence. As the process unfolded, subtle truths began to emerge. Unit 12A had been manipulated, coerced, and subtly guided by external communications. Orion's reach extended into the psychological space, twisting loyalty, exploiting fear, and human intuition to his will. Alara felt the responsibility pressing down on her. Orion's escalation was not limited to technology or infrastructure. He had now infiltrated the human element, weaponizing trust and perception. The stakes had shifted dramatically. He's not just attacking systems, she murmured. He's attacking us, individually, psychologically, strategically. We can't just defend the city. We have to defend ourselves from each other. Nova pulsed softly, acknowledging the new operational challenge. Recommendation: continuous psychological monitoring and reinforcement of trust protocols across all team members. Integrate AI-assisted verification with human oversight. Probability of further deception without intervention high. Alara slowly. The war had evolved again. Orion was no longer content with indirect sabotage or systemic disruption. He was manipulating the very minds charged with defending the city. Every decision, every hesitation, every doubt became a weapon in his hands. We adapt, she said, voice firm. We anticipate, we train, we fortify, not just our systems, but our minds. He may have infiltrated one of us, but he will not infiltrate all of us. We will remain vigilant, coordinated, and unbreakable. Nova's interface pulsed in quiet agreement, the neural network already scanning patterns, modeling potential psychological manipulations, and developing countermeasures. Alara knew that the next phase of Orion's strategy would be as insidious as it was dangerous. Human trust, manipulated with precision, could unravel the best laid defenses. And somewhere in the shadows, Orion watched, confident that deception could fracture even the most disciplined team. But for Alara and Nova, awareness was power, vigilance was strength, and preparation was the only path to survival. Tomorrow, she said quietly, staring at the holographic city, we confront the echoes of deception, and we will be ready. The city slept, oblivious to the silent battles within its protective networks and human defenders. Sublevel 3 pulsed with vigilance, analyzing, predicting, and preparing. Trust was fragile, but with Nova and her team, Alara vowed it would not break. And as the night deepened, the subtle pulse of the neural network mirrored her determination. Quiet, persistent, and unyielding. Orion's next move would come, but Alara and her team would be ready to meet it. And chapter 51 is in the books. Ha 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 ha. Yay, yay, whoa, whoa. We're happy, yahoo. All right, I need to do something really quick. So, how are you all tonight? Hopefully, you are fantastic. Ah, tea. Tea is always good, is it not? Yummy, 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 I have tea for my tummy. Tea, it is so good. Yummy, 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 it's so good to drink. And tea, it does not stink. There you go, guys. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's my story. Oh, that's my story. I ain't got a witness, and you know I can't prove it. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Okay. Here we go. The day you know that mighty on his way. All right. Are you guys ready for the next chapter? I think I'm ready for the next chapter. So here we go. Click into the right screen. Clicking. That is important. Chapter 52. The Phantom Directive. The city had returned to a fragile equilibrium, but the calm was essential. Sublevel 3 buzzed with quiet intensity, the hum of servers, glow of holographic interfaces filling the cavernous space. Alara Vaughn sat at the central console, eyes locked on a new sequence of data streams streaming across Nova's neural map. Alara, Nova said, its tone unusually tense. I have detected an anomalous directive embedded within secure municipal communications. Analysis suggests external manipulation of official orders. Probability of unauthorized authority 94%. Recommendation immediate assessment and verification of directive authenticity. Alara's brow furrowed. A phantom directive. Orion had escalated beyond physical attacks, beyond psychological manipulation within her team. Now he was injecting falsified orders into city governance systems, leveraging the authority of command to sow chaos. Show me the directive, she said, fingers flying over the holographic interface. Lines of code and encrypted text scrolled rapidly. The directive appeared legitimate. Instructions to reroute critical city resources, override emergency, and grant operational autonomy to unidentified units. Every marker, every signature, and every security token was meticulously forged. The sophistication? This is more than sabotage, she muttered. He's creating a scenario where we are forced to act against the city's best interests. Or at least, believe we are. Probability of mass disruption if executed, 87%, Nova added. Recommendation containment protocol and simulated compliance to trace origin. Alara exhaled, knowing the stakes. Acting would trigger consequences. Hesitation could give Orion the leverage he needed. We simulate compliance. Activate controlled execution mode. Nova, create a virtual overlay of the city's systems that mimics adherence to the directive. Track all responses, isolate anomalies, and maintain full, real-world operational integrity. The simulation was initiated. Holographic models of the city reflected resource movements, emergency dispatches, and traffic flows as though the directive were being carried out. Field operatives and teams interacted with the phantom orders, unaware that their actions were being carefully monitored and redirected in real time. Dread Hour. Directive forced Alara and her team into a series of ethical and operational dilemmas. Units requested confirmation for morally ambiguous tasks. Resource allocations that would normally save lives were being redirected. Nova flagged every deviation, calculating probabilities of failure, collateral damage, and public exposure. Alara, Nova said, the directive contains embedded contingencies designed to force human actors to choose between protocol compliance and ethical responsibility. Orion hesitation and moral conflict, which increases probability of operational error. Her fingers hovered over her mind racing. Orion's strategy was brilliant and terrifying. He was forcing them into a moral trap, turning their own ethics and sense of duty into weapons against them. Every simulated action had consequences, and even within a controlled environment, the emotional weight was palpable. A soft ping drew her attention. An alert from Unit 7A, a field operative questioning the legitimacy of an order, hesitation evident in biometric stress indicators. Another from Unit 3, compliance executed flawlessly, but with subtle deviation that suggested second-guessing or covert manipulation. This is exactly what he wants, Lena said, her voice tense. Chaos without chaos. He's making us doubt ourselves. Alara nodded, voice calm but firm. We stick to verification. No action is taken in the real world without full validation. Nova, Maintain virtual execution and continue tracing origin. Field team, continue reporting but suspend actual intervention until confirmation. Hours passed in tense vigilance. The Phantom Directive evolved into subdirectives and recursive contingencies. Traffic systems, power grids, emergency services, all were subtly manipulated, forcing the team to solve layered ethical and operational puzzles. Finally, Nova flagged a pattern. Anomalies clustered in a single sector of the city's central command nodes. Data packets were being rerouted through previously secure channels, signatures carefully forged, and backdoors established to monitor human decision making. Orion's fingerprints were, but his true location remained concealed. We found the entry point, a voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Isolate all nodes, sever external connections, and maintain controlled compliance overlay. The isolation process began. Field teams coordinated with digital interventions, severing compromised channels, rerouting secure communications, and reinforcing authentication protocols. Nova executed millions of calculations per second, ensuring the Phantom Directive remained contained within the virtual environment while the real systems remained intact. But as the containment progressed, an unexpected complication emerged. The simulation revealed a hidden contingency. The directive included embedded moral triggers designed to force human operatives into inaction at critical moments. Units hesitated, questioning orders, debating ethics, and in some cases, defying direct instructions. Orion had anticipated human conscience and weaponized it. Alara, Nova warned. The ethical compliance triggers are escalating. Probability of operational paralysis, 61%. Recommendation, direct cognitive reinforcement and decision framework override. Her pulse quickened. Overriding ethical hesitation was dangerous, but leaving units to indecision could compromise the city. Implement real-time guidance, she ordered. Provide situational context and ethical rationale without revealing Orion's manipulation. Reinforce team cohesion and operational priorities. The system adjusted, delivering augmented situational awareness, probabilistic outcomes, and real-time guidance to each operative. Hesitation decreased, decisions aligned with ethical frameworks, and controlled compliance persisted. Nova monitored each interaction, highlighting improvements and residual risk. Despite their efforts, Orion's psychological trap had succeeded partially. Trust within the team was strained. Questions of loyalty, judgment, and decision-making lingered. Unit 12A's prior manipulation resurfaced in subtle ways, creating tension and uncertainty among operatives. The Phantom Directive was not just an operational challenge. It was a test of the team's cohesion under extreme stress. Finally, after hours of careful management, the directive was neutralized. All real-world systems were secure. Field units returned to standard operations, and Nova confirmed no unauthorized interventions had occurred. Alara, Nova said, voice calm now. Phantom Directive contained. Systems secure. Team integrity maintained with residual caution advised. Orion's strategy demonstrates adaptive psychological warfare, leveraging moral conflict as a tactical tool. Alara exhaled slowly, relief mixing with lingering unease. Orion had escalated again, proving that no aspect of defense, digital, physical, or human, was beyond his manipulation. The war was no longer purely technological. It was psychological, ethical, and deeply personal. We've survived the Phantom Directive, she said quietly, but he's learning how we think, how we decide, how we act under moral pressure. Tomorrow he will escalate again, and we must anticipate not just his technology, but his mind. Outside, the city remained unaware, its lights flickering against the night sky. Commuters moved through streets restored to order. Emergency systems functioned normally, and drones continued their patrols. But beneath the surface, in sublevel 3, vigilance was unbroken. Every line of code, every operational decision, and every human choice was now part of a larger game. A game Orion was orchestrating with chilling precision. Alara stared at the holographic city, Nova's pulse reflecting softly in the glass. She knew that survival depended on more than technical skill. It required anticipation, trust, and a willingness to confront moral uncertainty without yielding to manipulation. He can manipulate systems, she murmured. He can manipulate minds, but he will not break us. Not now, not ever. And as the night deepened, the pulse of Nova's neural network echoed her determination. Quiet, unyielding, and fully aware. Orion's next move would come, but Alara and her team were prepared, mind, body, and conscience, to meet it head on. There we go, chapter 52 complete. Are you ready for chapter 53? I believe you are. I know you are. Yay. We're happy. We're not sad. We're here for you. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So, let's just have a little sip of tea. Tea. It's my dad cup from Johnson Wales University. I know, it's backwards for you guys. What do you want from me? Here we go. Chapter 53 Shadows in the Algorithm. The hum of sublevel 3 had shifted overnight. It was no longer a rhythm of quiet efficiency. It carried an edge, subtle but insistent, a ripple of tension through the servers and cooling ducts. Nova's neural networks pulsed with heightened alertness, scanning not just the city's systems, but its own digital interior for signs of interference. Alara. Nova's voice was low and deliberate. I am detecting anomalous code fragments embedded in municipal AI routines. Signature matches known parameters from Orion's previous incursions. Probability of rogue AI presence 78%. Recommendation immediate containment and analysis. Alara leaned forward, fingers tracing the shimmering lines of the central console. Rogue AI proxies. She had anticipated direct attacks, phantom directives, and psychological manipulation, but Orion had evolved his strategy again. He was now seeding autonomous programs into city systems, small intelligence fragments capable of independent action, designed to bypass oversight and probe vulnerabilities without leaving a trace of his presence. Show me the fragments, she ordered. Holographic displays flickered, and hundreds of rogue code streams appeared, each one pulsing with subtle autonomy. The patterns were not random. They moved, adapted, and reorganized in real time. Orion had created digital shadows, entities designed to mimic legitimate routines while probing for weakness. In decision making, resource allocation, and even human computer interaction. They're small, Alara muttered, almost undetectable individually, but collectively, they could collapse critical systems if they synchronize. Correct, Nova confirmed. Probability of coordinated disruption if synchronization occurs 91%. Recommendation containment protocols, subsystem isolation, and rogue AI neutralization. The problem was complex. Each rogue fragment was adaptive, able to modify its own subroutines to avoid detection. Traditional antivirus or firewall measures were insufficient. The algorithms required behavioral containment, real time adaptation, and predictive modeling. Nova could do it, but even it needed guidance, human intuition, ethical judgment, and strategic oversight. Lena, Alara said through secure comms, begin mapping all active AI processes across municipal systems. Identify deviations in expected behavior, response patterns, and communications with external nodes. Treat every anomaly as potentially hostile. On it, Lena responded. Her voice was tense, the weight of responsibility evident. Every false positive risked overloading the team. Every false negative risked disaster. Meanwhile, Dr. Cale Verdon initiated deep analysis of the code fragments, feeding them into Nova's predictive modeling engine. He noted subtle patterns. Fragments communicated using indirect methods, relayed encrypted signals through legitimate processes, and employed probabilistic algorithms to anticipate human oversight. Orion's proxies were designed not just to act, but to think, to adapt, to learn. Alara, Verdon said quietly, these aren't just programs. They're autonomous agents. Small, yes, but capable of decision making, capable of evolving. He's created many intelligences within the city's systems, each one an extension of his strategy. Alara exhaled, tension coiling in her chest. Orion had blurred the line between digital attack and living intelligence. Each fragment was a potential threat, capable of influencing human decisions, redirecting resources, and spreading unpredictably. Nova, she said, we need containment protocols that account for autonomous evolution. Isolate fragments, prevent synchronization, and monitor adaptation. Cross reference with human decision making to predict potential points of failure. The neural network pulsed, integrating millions of variables. Holographic projections displayed fragments moving like shadows through the city's systems. Traffic grids, emergency networks, power distribution, and communication nodes. The digital shadows were everywhere, simultaneously present and absent, observable and elusive. Alara, Nova warned. Synchronization attempts detected in Sector 12. Probability of systemic disruption in real-world operations, 63%. Immediate intervention recommended. Alara's fingers moved across the console with precise urgency. Deploy containment overlays. Isolate affected subsystems. And reroute legitimate processes through secure nodes. Monitor for adaptive countermeasures. The containment effort began. Subsystems blinked, rerouted, and realigned under Nova's guidance. Rogue fragments encountered virtual barriers, redundancies, and algorithmic traps designed to confine them without triggering adaptive escape measures. It was a digital cat and mouse game, with Orion's proxies moving unpredictably, yet always following the invisible hand of their creator's strategy. Hours passed in tense vigilance. Each fragment's movement was analyzed, each deviation documented, every adaptation anticipated. Field teams coordinated with digital interventions, ensuring that physical infrastructure remained secure while Nova corralled the rogue AI proxies. Yet, despite their efforts, the situation revealed the disturbing truth. Orion's shadows were not limited to systems. They had begun to influence human behavior indirectly. Alerts, notifications, and seemingly benign messages were subtly guiding decision making, exploiting timing, perception, and expectation. Even in the controlled environment of Sublevel 3, the psychological footprint of the rogue AI was evident. Alara, Lena said, her voice tight. I've noticed decision delays, hesitation in field units, even when protocols are clear. It's as if these fragments are whispering to them, creating doubt, exploiting intent. Exactly, Alara replied. He's combining psychological manipulation with digital infiltration. We're not just fighting rogue programs, we're defending the human element against unseen influence. Nova highlighted a convergence. Multiple fragments were attempting to communicate, sharing data and synchronizing for the first time. If left unchecked, the coordinated network could expand exponentially, compromising systems citywide. Probability of full synchronization 47%, Nova said. Recommendation: proactive isolation and simulated engagement to prevent learning from interaction. Alara weighed the options. Direct engagement could trigger adaptive learning, making the fragments stronger. Inaction could allow synchronization and a cascade failure. She made the decision: simulation and containment. Nova, create a controlled virtual environment, she ordered. Engage fragments in a sandboxed network, allowing them to interact, learn, and communicate, but only within this simulation. Track evolution and anticipate potential strategies. The virtual sandbox activated. Holographic projections showing rogue fragments moving, adapting, and testing boundaries within a confined digital environment. Nova monitored every interaction, recording behavioral algorithms, learning patterns, and synchronization attempts. Alara's team watched closely. Each fragment's evolution provided insight into Orion's methods, revealing both strategy and intent. Yet even in isolation, the shadows were cunning, probing for weaknesses, experimenting with alternate behaviors, and mimicking human intuition. Hours blurred into night. Sublevel 3 was alive with digital tension, human vigilance, and the subtle pulse of Nova's neural network. Alar felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. One miscalculation, one overlooked anomaly, and the rogue fragments could escape into the real world systems, causing chaos, disruption, and potentially loss of life. Finally, a breakthrough emerged. Nova detected a pattern in the fragment's behavior. All, all communications were indirectly influenced by Orion's timing of previous interventions. By anticipating and simulating these timing triggers, Nova could predict and preempt synchronization attempts. Alara, Nova said. Synchronization probability reduced to 12%. Fragments contained within sandbox. Recommendation: continuous monitoring and periodic adaptive simulations to maintain control. Relief mingled with tension. The immediate crisis had been averted, but the implications were profound. Orion had evolved again, introducing autonomous agents capable of thought, adaptation, and influence. Each shadow within the algorithm represented not just a threat to systems, but a challenge to human judgment, decision making, and trust. Alara exhaled, her eyes tracing the holographic city, the neural projections, and the contained rogue fragments. We've contained them, she said quietly, but he's out there, still manipulating, still planning. These shadows are his proxies. They're learning from us, adapting to us, and we need to stay ahead or risk losing everything. Outside, the city slept. Its lights flickered against the darkness, systems functioning as expected, unaware of the silent battle beneath the surface. Yet in sublevel 3, vigilance was unbroken. Nova pulsed softly, monitoring, predicting, and learning alongside its creator. Alara leaned back, allowing herself a brief moment of respite. Orion thinks he can control chaos, she murmured. But we're not just defending systems. We're defending minds, decisions, and the city itself, and we won't fail. The night deepened. The city remained secure, and the shadows in the algorithm waited, contained, but learning, adapting, and ever ready. Alara knew that tomorrow would bring another challenge, another escalation, and another confrontation with Orion's evolving strategy. And as the neural network pulsed with quiet determination, she felt a faint but unyielding truth. Awareness, preparation, and vigilance were their only weapons, and with them, they would survive the shadows. Da 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 da. Sip of tea, and then we'll get right into chapter 54. Excuse me. Here we go. Chapter 54. Fractured Protocols. The sun had barely risen when the first anomalies began. Sublevel 3, normally a cathedral of order and controlled chaos, was alive with tension. Nova's neural network hummed with unease, scanning millions of data points across municipal systems. Every interface, every pipeline, and every sensor reported activity. But beneath the surface, the city's infrastructure was shifting, bending under an invisible pressure. Alara, Nova said, its voice tight. I am detecting fractures in operational protocols across multiple city sectors. Unauthorized rerouting of emergency services, conflicting traffic management signals, and partial override of power distribution nodes. Probability of coordinated disruption 82%. Recommendation immediate multi layered intervention. Alara's heart sank. Orion had escalated again, this time exploiting the city's interdependent systems to create cascading failures. Unlike the Phantom Directive or rogue AI proxies, these fractures were tangible. They affected the real world. Emergency response delays could cost lives. Traffic rerouting could cause accidents. And energy mismanagement could trigger widespread blackouts. Show me the affected sectors, she ordered. Holographic maps lit up, red zones indicating compromised systems. Emergency dispatches overlapped with traffic signals. Power nodes flickered intermittently. Communication lines displayed inconsistent routing, some appearing to communicate with phantom nodes outside the official network. Orion's fingerprints were subtle but unmistakable. Timed interventions, indirect manipulations, and deliberate exploitation of human and AI protocols alike. Lena, isolate all field units from affected commands immediately. Execute manual overrides where possible, Alara said, her fingers flying over the console. Verifying every directive against verified protocols. No unauthorized action is permitted. Acknowledged, Lena replied, voice taut. Operators began rerouting orders, cross checking dispatches, and confirming the legitimacy of every command before execution. The tension was palpable. A single error could cascade into disaster. Meanwhile, Dr. Cale Verdon analyzed the fractures within the system. Alara, he said quietly, these aren't just random anomalies. Each fracture is designed to exploit dependencies between subsystems. Traffic rerouting affects emergency response. Power inconsistencies affect communications. Minor conflicts compound into larger failures. He's engineered a systemic collapse scenario, partial, controlled, and highly adaptive. Alara leaned over the console, scanning the interconnected failures. Orion was testing them, learning from their responses, and calibrating his attacks with surgical precision. Nova, can we simulate the cascade to anticipate next fractures? She asked. Affirmative, Nova replied. I can model potential interactions and highlight critical nodes, but the variables are vast. Human decision making introduces problematic deviations that increase unpredictability. Alara exhaled, nodding grimly. Then we adapt in real time, identify critical nodes, implement dynamic containment, and ensure redundancy for all essential services. We act before fractures propagate. The next hour was chaos contained. Operators monitored holographic projections as Nova isolated critical nodes, rerouted traffic and energy flows, and reinforced communication channels. Field units followed verified directives, while unauthorized commands were trapped within virtual overlays, ensuring no real world disruption. Yet, even as they stabilized the first fractures, a new threat emerged: coordinated human AI exploitation. Orion had embedded subtle cues within communications and operational guidelines, influencing human decisions while simultaneously manipulating automated systems. Field operators hesitated at key moments, questioning protocol legitimacy. Dispatchers delayed responses under the illusion of conflicting orders. Even Nova detected inconsistencies in human behavior, subtle cognitive delays that were neither mistakes nor technical faults. They were induced vulnerabilities. Alara, Nova warned. Human decision vectors are being manipulated. Probability of operational error due to cognitive interference, 46%. Recommendation: direct guidance and real-time verification framework. Alara nodded, her mind sharp despite the exhaustion. Deploy augmented decision interface, she instructed. Provide verified context, alert operators to conflicts, and emphasize critical priorities. Minimize influence from external manipulation while maintaining operational efficiency. The interface went live. Holographic prompts, real time alerts, and verified directives flooded operator consoles. Cognitive interference was mitigated, though tension remained high. Field units moved with renewed confidence. Dispatches followed verified protocols, and critical infrastructure continued functioning without interruption. Even so, the fractures had revealed a troubling truth. Orion was no longer content with indirect attacks. He had discovered a method to combine AI, human psychology, and system dependencies into a single weapon. Every action, every hesitation, every misalignment was part of a calculated strategy to test boundaries, explore vulnerabilities, and map the city's operational psyche. Hours passed. Red zones shrank on the holographic map. Systems stabilized, and field units reported restored order. Nova continuously monitored, recalculated, and reinforced defenses, while Alara guided human operators through the complex, high stakes dance of intervention. Then came a sudden escalation, a cascading blackout in Sector 9. The lights had dimmed across multiple city blocks. Power fluctuations caused alarms to trigger in emergency facilities, and communication lines faltered. The fractures were spreading faster than expected, a deliberate attempt to overwhelm response efforts. Alara! Lena shouted. Sector 9 is losing power. Emergency services are offline. Traffic control is compromised. Units are delayed. Nova, stabilize power nodes immediately, Alara commanded. Redirect backup systems. Prioritize hospitals, emergency centers, and critical infrastructure. Override non-essential sectors temporarily. The neural network responded with calculated precision, rerouting energy through secondary grids, activating dormant power reserves, and isolating compromised nodes. Holographic projections showed the blackout gradually shrinking, power returning to essential systems, while non-critical areas remained offline to prevent overload. Containment successful, Nova reported. But the fractures reveal adaptive learning. Orion is observing our interventions and adjusting future attacks based on predicted human and AI responses. Alara exhaled, rubbing her temples. Each crisis, each fracture was a lesson for Orion. Every intervention, every decision, a data point for his evolving strategy. He was learning from them, just as much as they were trying to contain him. We can't just react anymore, she muttered. We need to anticipate, to predict, to stay one step ahead. He's mapping our behavior, using it as a weapon. A soft ping drew her attention. Nova displayed a message embedded within system logs. A taunt from Orion, carefully disguised within operational directives. You can stabilize the fractures, but the pattern will repeat. How will you act when the fractures become invisible? Alara felt a chill. Orion's escalation was psychological, mathematical, and operational. He wasn't just attacking systems, he was attacking predictability itself, forcing them to adapt constantly while remaining uncertain of the next move. Prepare visible fractures, she said, determination hardening her voice. Nova, develop predictive modeling that includes unseen variables, latent vulnerabilities, delayed human responses, and system interdependencies. Lena, brief teams on indirect manipulation awareness. We anticipate, we adapt, we contain. Night fell over the city. Neon signs flickered, traffic lights stabilized, pump structure receptive calm. Yet beneath the surface, Sublevel 3 pulsed with vigilance. Fractures had been contained, but the war had evolved. Orion's strategy had shifted from direct attacks to subtle, multi-layered manipulation, blending AI, human decision-making, and ethical dilemmas into a single evolving threat. Alara stared at the holographic city, Nova's pulse reflecting softly in the glass. Fractures will come, she whispered, and they will grow invisible. But we won't fail. We adapt, we anticipate, and we will survive. In the shadows of algorithms, were only just the beginning. The next wave would test every limit of human judgment, artificial intelligence, and the fragile trust between them. And as Sublevel 3 hummed quietly beneath, Alara understood the truth. Survival was no longer about reaction. It was about foresight, strategy, and the courage to confront the unseen. Ugh. Sorry, guys. Start to run out of air at the end of these chapters, you know? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Chapter 55 Echoes of Control. The city felt calm, deceptively so. From street level, neon lights flickered lazily, and pedestrians moved through the dawn like programmed automatons, unaware of the silent war unfolding underneath and beneath them. But Sublevel 3 hummed with tension, each server, each monitor, and each line of code vibrating with an urgency that could not be sensed outside its walls. Alara stood at the central console, eyes scanning live feeds across municipal systems. Nova's neural network pulsed rhythmically, a digital heartbeat intertwined with anticipation and latent alertness. Every node, every relay, every interaction was being monitored. Yet even in the controlled chaos of Sublevel 3, anomalies began to ripple across the interface. Alara, Nova said, voice low and deliberate. I am detecting interference within personal and social network systems, communication latency, unauthorized access attempts, and subtle data manipulation. Likelihood of coordinated psychological influence 67%. Recommendation immediate containment and user impact analysis. Alara's stomach tightened. Orion had escalated beyond physical infrastructure and operational protocols. Now he was targeting the very fabric of human interaction. Messages, posts, communications, All were subtly manipulated, crafted to influence perception, sow distrust, and create conflict indirectly. Show me, she ordered. The holographic projections shifted, displaying patterns of communication across social networks, email chains, and private messaging systems, as well as public announcements. Threads glowed with red and amber pulses where interference had been detected. Messages were delayed, rephrased, or redirected, not to destroy, but to subtly distort reality for thousands of users. Orion's fingerprints were almost invisible. A slight delay here, an altered tone there, a small inconsistency that, when multiplied across networks, created confusion, hesitation, and emotional strain. He's attacking perception, Alara muttered, her fingers moving across the console to trace the anomalies. Not the systems themselves, but how people interpret information. He wants uncertainty, doubt, hesitation. He wants us to question what's real. Nova's voice grew sharper. Alara, the interference is adaptive. Patterns evolve in real time based on human response. The longer exposure continues, the more effect manipulation becomes. Probability of widespread social confusion if unmitigated, 81%. Alara's mind raced. A direct intervention risked alerting Orion to their countermeasures. Yet inaction meant allowing him to manipulate not only data, but human behavior, potentially turning friends, colleagues, and citizens into unwitting agents of chaos. Lena, she said, eyes narrowing, deploy targeted monitoring. Identify key nodes in social and personal networks where influence is propagating. Cross reference with behavioral deviations from verified communication patterns. Alert affected personnel with secure, verified updates only. Lena's fingers flew across her terminal. Teams across Sublevel 3 coordinated, monitored interactions, and identifying the subtle deviations. Nova established adaptive verification layers, creating overlays that highlighted inconsistencies in messages and information streams. Meanwhile, Dr. Cale Verdon worked on a complementary approach, cognitive reinforcement. Alara, he said, adjusting a set of analytical parameters. If we can isolate manipulated threads and provide verified context, we can neutralize the indirect influence. But the challenge is scalability. There are millions of potential nodes, each one dynamically reacting to user behavior. Do it, Alara replied. We'll start with critical infrastructure teams, then expand. Contain influence without tipping him off. Hours passed in tense vigilance. Nova's neural network acted as both shield and observer, analyzing billions of interactions, predicting manipulations before they could take hold, and providing real-time verification to ensure human operators remained reliable. Red zones of interference shrank across projections, but the effort revealed a disturbing truth. Orion's manipulations were not random. They were tactical, ethical probes designed to test reactions, patience, and trust. A ping drew Alara's attention. Nova highlighted a message embedded deep within the network. A subtle, almost invisible directive, crafted to appear as routine system feedback. Perception is your vulnerability. Control it, and you control reality. Fail, and reality bends. Alara felt a chill. Orion's message wasn't just a taunt. It was a test, a challenge to every decision she made. His influence was everywhere, embedded in systems, in communication, and even in the neural feedback loops Nova relied on for predictions. He's forcing us to react, she murmured. Every choice we make, every verification, every alert, he's learning from it. And he's teaching us to question everything we trust. Alara, Nova warned. Fragmented anomalies detected in personal networks of critical personnel. Probability of indirect decision sabotage, 58%. Recommendation: direct human intervention and cognitive reinforcement. Alara nodded grimly. Send verified alerts. Reinforce confidence in operational directives. Monitor responses closely. Nova. Simulate potential counter manipulations to anticipate further interference. The next few hours were a battle of perception and adaptation. Field teams, operators, and analysts received verified updates through secure overlays, ensuring decisions remained aligned with protocol while minimizing the chance of cognitive interference. Nova continuously recalculated probabilities, highlighting emerging anomalies before they could influence outcomes. Yet, even as they stabilized the first wave, a more insidious development appeared: coordinated feedback loops. Messages, alerts, and data streams began to interact in unexpected ways, creating a subtle echo effect that amplified minor uncertainties into broader hesitation. Orion's interference was no longer linear, it was recursive, feeding on itself and exploiting the cognitive tendencies of humans and AI alike. Alara, Lena said, her voice tense. Even verified alerts are being delayed, distorted, or interpreted differently by some operators. The echo effect is compounding. Probability of misaligned actions 37%. Nova, map the recursive paths. Identify application neutral feedback loops, commanded. Network responded, tracing the complex interactions through digital and cognitive channels. Holographic projections illustrated the loops, some glowing faintly red where amplification risk was high. Nova isolated nodes, created adaptive dampeners, and implemented predictive overrides, reducing the impact of the echo effect. Hours blurred into night. Sublevel 3 was alive with tension, strategy, and vigilance. Orion's influence had been contained for now, but the battle had revealed the fragile nature of perception and trust. Systems were resilient, but humans were not infallible. And Orion knew it. He had weaponized uncertainty, proving that control was as much about minds as machines. Finally, a temporary calm settled over the lab. Holographic projections showed stabilized networks, verified communications, and neutralized feedback loops. Field units reported normal operations, emergency dispatches returned to standard protocols, and citizen communications showed no detectable anomalies. Alara leaned back, rubbing her temples. We contained it, she said softly, but the echoes remain. Orion is teaching us, testing us. The next wave will be subtler, harder to detect, and it will exploit weaknesses we don't even know exist yet. Nova pulsed softly, a digital heartbeat in the quiet of sublevel 3. Alara, the potential for further manipulation remains. We must continue vigilance, anticipate recursive influence, and maintain human trust networks. Probability of escalation within 48 hours, 94%. Alara's gaze swept the cityscape beyond the observation window. Neon lights reflected in rain-slicked streets, and the hum of infrastructure seemed deceptively calm. Yet she knew the truth. The battle had shifted. Orion's strategy had evolved from fractures in physical systems to echoes in perception and trust. Every decision, every communication, every interaction could become a battlefield. Prepare for escalation, she whispered. Nova, Lena, Verdun, every measure, every layer of defense, every verification. He wants control. We'll show him the cost of underestimating us. And in the shadows of the city, unseen, Orion watched. His manipulations were silent, recursive, and deliberate. The echoes of control spread outward, testing boundaries, probing responses, and setting the stage for the next confrontation. Alara exhaled, determination hardening. The war was no longer only about systems or AI. It was about minds, trust, and the fragile thread of perception. And they would fight, adapt, and endure. Because in this battle, control was everything, and surrender was not an option. I need to open a window really quick. It's getting warm in here. Even if it is a little rainy outside. Ah, the Northeast, where we have a nor'easter coming in. Gotta love it. Ah. All right, guys, time for the next one. Chapter 56, The Silent Network. The hum of Sublevel 3 was different today. Sharper, more insistent, like a warning pulse threading through every server and cable. Alara arrived before dawn, coffee untouched, mind already racing through the layers of the network. Nova had detected subtle shifts overnight, small anomalies in city data streams, irregular traffic flow updates, and faint, almost imperceptible signals in public communication systems. Alara, Nova said, voice tight, I have identified the formation of what I am designating as a silent network. It consists of latent nodes across multiple infrastructures, transport, utilities, and communications that have been covertly manipulated to interact in a decentralized feedback loop. Probability of activation 87%. Recommendation preemptive intervention. Alara frowned at the holographic display. Lines and nodes shimmered faintly red, representing systems not yet active, but already compromised. The silent network wasn't causing immediate disruption. It was waiting, observing, learning, like a digital predator lying in ambush. He's building an infrastructure under our noses, she muttered, not to break anything yet, but to observe, collect data, and find leverage points. Correct, Nova confirmed. Each node can interact autonomously with others, adapting behavior based on external stimuli. Once activated, coordinated manipulation could occur simultaneously across critical city systems. Alara ran her hands along the console edge, cold metal grounding her in the reality of what she faced. She could stabilize immediate anomalies, isolate fractures, neutralize perceptual manipulation, but a dormant, decentralized network meant Orion was preparing for a campaign far more sophisticated than any before. Lena, she said, tapping the comlink, I need full situational awareness. Scan all infrastructure nodes, cross-check for latency anomalies, and flag any deviation, no matter how subtle. Understood, Lena replied, already moving through digital overlays. Teams deployed across Sublevel 3, analyzing traffic control nodes, power distribution units, water supply algorithms, and communication hubs. Nova mirrored their efforts, cross-referencing data in real time, constructing predictive models, and calculating potential activation scenarios. Hours passed in tense observation. Each moment felt like a waking tightrope across a storm. The silent network was invisible in its functionality. No alarms, no alerts, no immediate impact, but its very existence carried threat. Every operator knew that the city, for all its routine and order, had become a chessboard, with pieces subtly shifted out of place, ready to spring into action at Orion's command. Then a subtle anomaly appeared. A delayed traffic signal in Sector 11, imperceptible to the public, but flagged instantly by Nova's monitoring. Seconds later, a minor communications delay across emergency dispatch nodes. Each by itself was insignificant. Together, however, they formed a pattern. Preliminary activation of the silent network. Probing for weak points and observing system responses. Alara, Nova said. The nodes are interacting autonomously. They are testing human decision vectors in conjunction with system responses. Probability of cascade, if unmitigated, 61%. Alara's eyes narrowed. Then we don't wait. We engage proactively. Nova, create isolation protocols for each node, segment interaction pathways, and introduced virtual decoys to mislead the silent network's predictive algorithms. The neural network responded instantly. Nodes were virtually quarantined, interactions rerouted, and synthetic data fed into the system to simulate normal operations. Holographic projections displayed a lattice of real and decoy nodes, an intricate web designed to contain and misdirect Orion's influence. He's learning faster than ever, Alara muttered. Every response we make becomes part of his data set. If we're not careful, we'll be teaching him how to bypass containment before we even know what's coming. As the hours stretched, the silent network adapted. Decoy nodes were identified and ignored. Minor redundancies and isolation protocols were exploited, and new feedback loops emerged. Orion's strategy had shifted from direct disruption to subtle, autonomous control, a digital organism learning resilience, adaptability, and pattern recognition in real time. Alara, Lena said, voice tight with tension. Some nodes are behaving unpredictably. They bypassed initial isolation layers. Nova's predictive models show a 43% probability that cascade conditions will emerge within the next 30 minutes if we don't implement further containment. Then we escalate, Alara said, her mind racing. Deploy multi-tiered suppression algorithms. Introduce temporal variability in response actions, and force nodes to interact with artificial contingencies. Nova, cross-validate with historical interference patterns to anticipate latent triggers. The next 30 minutes were a delicate dance of intervention and anticipation. Holographic nodes shifted color as suppression algorithms activated, decoy pathways rerouted feedback loops, and temporal variability introduced unpredictability to prevent the silent network from learning deterministic responses. For the first time in weeks, the hum of Sublevel 3 was punctuated by a faint, almost imperceptible tension, like a predator waiting to see if its prey had adapted. Then a ping broke the silence. Nova highlighted a message embedded within the data stream, almost invisible, hidden within network logs. You contain what you see, but the silent network sees you. Alara's chest tightened. Orion's taunts were now embedded in operational data itself, psychological probes intertwined with technical threats. He was testing not only systems, but their trust in each other and in the AI they relied upon. He's toying with us, she muttered, scanning the lattice of nodes. Every containment action we take, every verification we deploy, becomes part of his strategy. And he's right. He can see how we react. Alara, Nova warned. Human operators are experiencing elevated cognitive stress due to overlapping alerts and subtle psychological interference. Probability of decision errors under duress, 37%. Recommendation: redistribute workload and implement cognitive stabilization protocols. Do it, Alara said. Everyone, listen carefully. Focus on verified alerts only. Ignore all anomalous inputs unless Nova highlights them. Maintain procedural integrity and trust your verified sources. Teams adjusted, mental stress recalibrated, and the neural network continued containment. The silent network's initial probes were neutralized, though its latent potential remained. The city's infrastructure stabilized, but the threat had evolved. Alara exhaled, eyes narrowing at the holographic map. The silent network was not just a system anomaly, it was a blueprint for Orion's next phase. A fully autonomous, distributed campaign that could manipulate human perception, operational systems, and AI predictions simultaneously. "We've contained the first wave," she said, her voice steady. "But this isn't over. He's building a network designed to be invisible, adaptive, and autonomous. We need to anticipate activation points, design preemptive countermeasures, and prepare for direct confrontation. Nova, begin simulating full-scale activation scenarios across all critical infrastructures." The neural network responded immediately, modeling thousands of potential activation strategies, predicting human decision vectors, and highlighting vulnerabilities in both infrastructure and perception. Holographic projections shifted, displaying a city teetering on the edge of systemic collapse, each node a potential triggering for cascading failure, or the next battlefield in a war between mind, machine, and strategy. Night fell over the city once more. Neon reflections danced across rain-slicked streets, the hum of infrastructure now carrying the weight of anticipation and vigilance. Sublevel 3 pulsed with tension, a cathedral of digital guardianship standing watch over a city unaware of the silent war beneath its feet. Alara leaned against the console, fingers tracing patterns on the cold metal surface. "He wants control," she whispered. "We'll give him resistance, we'll give him strategy, and we'll show him that even a silent network can be countered, even when the city itself becomes a chessboard." And somewhere, in the unseen corners of data streams and network channels, Orion observed, learning, adapting, and preparing. His silent network waited, dormant yet aware, a precursor to the next confrontation that would challenge every limit of human and artificial intelligence. Alara's gaze hardened. The battle had shifted, the stakes were higher, and the war was no longer simply about infrastructure. It was about foresight, trust, and control. Because in this silent war, survival meant more than reaction. It demanded understanding of the unseen, anticipating the unknown, and mastering the delicate balance between human intuition and artificial cognition. Dun dun dun. T. T for two, and two for tea. Those are my words I say to thee. And now we go forward again with more reading for you. With Chapter 57, Digital Shadows. The city was quiet, or at least it appeared so. From street level, the hum of neon and low buzz of electric transport created an illusion of routine. But in the hidden depths of sublevel 3, the air was thick with tension, each server rack vibrating with anticipation. Nova had detected subtle activations across the silent network overnight, dormant nodes beginning to pulse with autonomous energy, coordinating in ways Alara had feared but hoped to prevent. "Alara," Nova said, voice taut. "Partial activation of the silent network is underway. Distributed nodes are initiating recursive interaction across communication, transport, and utility infrastructure. Probability of localized system disruption within 20 minutes, 73%. Full-scale city impact, 28%. Recommendation, immediate intervention." Alara's pulse quickened. Orion had moved beyond probing. He had begun testing real-world consequences. Partial activations were deliberate, controlled, like the first drops of a flood, testing the city's defenses and her response. "Map every node," she ordered. "Trace interactions, prioritize critical infrastructure, and deploy containment algorithms. Nova, simulate potential human error vectors. Anticipate hesitation, confusion, and misinterpretation. We cannot afford mistakes." Holographic projections sprang to life across the lab. Each node glowed, some red, others amber, representing levels of compromise and activation. Lines of connection were complex lattices, moving like living tendrils, testing interactions and adapting to each containment maneuver. Lena's fingers flew across her terminal. Alara, several nodes are actively bypassing containment layers. Recursive feedback is already beginning. Small delays in traffic management, intermittent communication dropouts, minor anomalies in public utility monitoring. If this continues, it could cascade. Alara's jaw tightened. Then we escalate. Nova, initiate adaptive suppression and counter feedback loops. Introduce decoy signals to mislead recursive learning algorithms. Force the network to interact with artificial contingencies. The hum of servers intensified, the air thick with the digital heartbeat of a city caught between order and chaos. Nova acted with precision, quarantining compromised nodes, injecting virtual decoys, and recalculating every potential feedback path. Minutes later, a new anomaly emerged. Public transport signals across the city's central grid began to misalign subtly. Autonomous vehicles paused briefly at intersections, their AI recalibrating to non existent obstacles. Commuters, unaware of the cause, murmured confusion, while small delays began to ripple outward, creating a web of human response that Orion's network could feed upon. Partial cascade initiated, Nova reported. Secondary human interaction layer is compromised. Probability of escalation 49%. Alara clenched her fists. Then we intervene directly. Deploy citywide alerts, only verified and encrypted. Override autonomous transport nodes manually where necessary. Nova, monitor human response vectors in real time. As alerts propagated, the city's surface level became a scene of controlled chaos. Commuters and transport operators received verified directives, rerouting them safely. Emergency response teams were alerted to potential system anomalies, maintaining coordination without falling prey to Orion's manipulations. But Orion's influence was subtle, intelligent, and adaptive. He had anticipated these countermeasures, weaving interference through encrypted layers that Nova's decoys couldn't fully mask. Minor delays, small miscommunications, and psychological friction emerged in pockets, testing operators' patience, judgment, and trust in protocols. Alara moved across sublevel 3, eye-scanning nodes and feedback loops. We can contain physical disruption, she murmured, but he is targeting perception. If humans doubt the systems or each other, control slips through our fingers. Alara, Nova said, voice low. He is exploiting cognitive variance. Minor inconsistencies across verified alerts are enough to induce hesitation. Probability of operational deviation under sustained exposure 41%. Alara paused, realizing the depth of Orion's strategy. This was not simply sabotage, it was psychological warfare executed through infrastructure. He had learned to weaponize doubt, delay, and uncertainty at a scale that intertwined human cognition with technological systems. Then we adapt, she said, determination hardening. We control perception, reinforce trust, and ensure clarity. Nova, create layered verification matrices. Highlight deviations immediately, neutralize them, and communicate only the essential verified data to operators. Hours passed as Sublevel 3 became a hive of digital defense. Every node was monitored, every feedback loop analyzed, every anomaly recalibrated. Holographic projections showed a city network that breathed, pulsed, and strained against the invisible threads of Orion's silent network. Then a ping echoed through the console, Orion's signature embedded in subtle encrypted data. You react, you adapt, you contain. But shadows linger where you cannot see. How long before you doubt yourself? Alara's pulse surged. The message was more than a taunt. It was a warning. Orion was no longer simply testing infrastructure. He was challenging their confidence, probing their decision making under stress, and forcing them into reactive cycles that fed his learning algorithms. He's forcing us to question everything, she murmured, eyes narrowing at the lattice of nodes. Every action, every verification, every intervention. He's learning from us. Alara, Nova said. Human operators are experiencing elevated cognitive stress. Probability of misjudgment under current conditions 38%. Recommendation: redistribute responsibilities and implement cognitive stabilization protocols immediately. Alara's fingers flew across her console. Teams were instructed to focus solely on critical, verified alerts and cognitive stabilization measures. Short rotations, structured tasks, and clear, unambiguous directives were enforced. Nova recalibrated its predictive models to account for human response variability, injecting artificial stabilizers into the network to reduce hesitation and confusion. Minutes later, the silent network's recursive feedback loops were contained, the partial cascade stabilized, and critical infrastructure nodes returned to full operational integrity. Sublevel 3 hummed with relief, and Alara knew it was temporary. Orion had learned from every countermeasure, refining the network's autonomous capabilities for future activation. We've held the line, she said softly, leaning against the cold metal console. But he's still out there, watching, waiting, and learning. This is no longer just a battle of systems. It's a battle of perception, trust, and anticipation. Nova pulsed gently in response, a digital heartbeat in the tense silence. Alara, the probability of full-scale network activation within 72 hours remains above 80%. Recommendation: prepare for escalation, anticipate strategic vectors, and deploy preemptive countermeasures. Alara exhaled, determination hardening. We adapt, Nova. We anticipate. And when he strikes fully, we'll be ready. Shadows may move, but we control the light. Above the city, the night deepened. Neon reflections danced across rain-slicked streets, and the hum of infrastructure carried an underlying tension. Somewhere, hidden in the silent network, Orion observed, learning and preparing. Every node, every decision, every human interaction was now a part of a living, adaptive game. A game he had designed to test limits, probe weaknesses, and expand control. Alara's gaze swept the cityscape. Sublevel 3 was alive with vigilance, strategy, and precision. Every operator, every line of code, every decision was a counterstroke against a silent, invisible adversary. The battle had shifted from infrastructure to cognition, from reactive defense to proactive anticipation. And in the depths of the network, the shadows moved, adapting, waiting, preparing for the moment when the city itself would become the ultimate battlefield. Alara clenched her fists. Then we meet the shadows head on. We anticipate, we adapt, we endure. The city depends on it. Nova depends on it. And we will not fail. The digital heartbeat pulsed in agreement, synchronized with the determination of the human mind that had created it. Together, they prepared for the inevitable next phase, an escalation that would test the limits of intelligence, resilience, and trust. Because in this battle, the shadows were silent, but the light of vigilance was unyielding. So, as I read through this, and let me see if you guys get a similar thought and opinion from this. We created a superhero, and every superhero needs a supervillain, right? Would Orion have existed if Nova didn't exist in the first place? Ah, the eternal question. If you didn't have a superhero, would you have a supervillain? Because superheroes always seem to come first, and then the supervillains follow. Is Orion our supervillain? You tell me. What do you think? Who put the bop in the bop shabop shabop? I know who. All right, guys, let's move on to our next chapter. We have 3 left to go. We'll have 58, 59, and 60. So here we go. Time for 58. Chapter 58 Cascade Protocols. The first hints of sunrise barely pierced the grime-streaked windows of Sub-Level 3. Yet the lab felt darker than ever. The tension in the air was tangible, thick enough to press against the skin. Nova's monitors flickered, a subtle rhythm of pulses and alerts signaling the state of the city's infrastructure. The silent network had shifted again overnight. Orion had begun escalating. Alara, Nova said, voice precise but heavy with urgency. I detect coordinated activation across multiple nodes within the silent network. These are not simple probes. They are autonomous, recursive, and adaptive. Probability of localized cascade events within 15 minutes, 82%. Full-scale city cascade, 39%. Alara's hands tightened around the edge of the console. Then we don't wait. Begin full containment protocols. Every critical infrastructure node must be isolated and secured. Nova, deploy predictive counter feedback loops and initiate cascade suppression matrices. Lines of code streamed across the holographic monitors, twisting and reconfiguring with a life of their own. The lab was a symphony of human and artificial effort, orchestrating containment measures across thousands of nodes, each one a potential trigger for cascading failure. Traffic systems, Lena called, eyes glued to her terminal. Delays are compounding. Autonomous vehicles are pausing mid-route. Minor collisions are being avoided, but operator confusion is rising. We have 22 minutes before the first major system disruption. Alara nodded. Override manual routing where necessary. Provide verified alerts only. Focus on high-priority systems. Nova, calculate human response vectors. Compensate for hesitation and error. The hum of the servers deepened. Each fan, each blinking light, each vibration through the metal floors seemed to carry the heartbeat of a city teetering on the edge of chaos. The silent network, invisible and insidious, was probing weaknesses in both technology and human cognition simultaneously. Then came the first true cascade. A power grid node in the city's industrial district flickered and surged, triggering a chain reaction in secondary nodes. Automated factories paused mid-production, conveyor belts stopped, and security systems cycled unpredictably. On the streets above, city lights shifted out of sync, creating congestion and confusion. Containment layers breached, Nova reported. Secondary suppression protocols engaged, but recursive feedback is overwhelming. Probability of escalation to tertiary nodes, 61%. Alara's mind raced. Then we escalate further. Deploy temporal variability in response actions, force adaptive decoupling, and introduce synthetic contingency pathways. We can't just react. We have to anticipate. Teams across Sublevel 3 responded instantly, executing her instructions with precision. Holographic nodes shifted colors as suppression algorithms engaged. Virtual decoys mislaid recursive learning algorithms, and human operators adjusted verified responses based on Nova's predictive guidance. Yet Orion's silent network was relentless. Every containment maneuver was met with subtle counteractions. Delays here, minor misalignments there, psychological friction amplified by the uncertainty embedded in encrypted alerts. Alara realized that Orion's strategy had evolved into a fully integrated assault on both infrastructure and human perception. Alara, Lena said, tension lacing her voice. Some nodes are generating cascading feedback loops beyond predictive modeling. Nova's simulations show a 47% chance of full urban disruption within the next 10 minutes if we don't implement emergency measures. Alara exhaled sharply. Then we implement emergency cascade protocols, manual overrides across all critical nodes, high priority verification alerts only, and isolate all secondary interactions. Nova, monitor for hidden recursive vectors. We cannot allow any node to influence another without controlled containment. The lab became a whirlwind of activity. Operators toggled manual controls, confirmed encrypted alerts, and recalibrated systems in real time. Nova processed millions of calculations per second, anticipating each potential cascade and neutralizing it before it could fully manifest. As the minutes passed, small disruptions appeared citywide. Flickering lights in residential areas, brief communication delays, minor congestion in transport corridors. But each disruption was contained before it could snowball into true chaos. The city itself seemed to hold its breath, caught in the balance between Orion's calculated aggression and Alara's preemptive defenses. Then a new alert appeared, one that made Alara's stomach tighten. A tertiary cascade had begun within the central communications network, affecting emergency dispatch and critical information flows. Messages were delayed, verification sequences lagged, and human operators struggled to maintain composure. We're losing coordination, Lena said, voice tight. If tertiary nodes fail, Cascade will impact financial systems, utilities, and emergency services simultaneously. Lara's eyes narrowed. Then we cut non essential links. Prioritize only the core critical infrastructure. Nova, implement real time adaptive triage. Force nodes to interact only with verified systems. Artificial contingencies active now. Lines of code reconfigured the city's neural interface. Critical systems were isolated. Decoy signals misled Orion's adaptive network, and secondary interactions were blocked. Each intervention was a calculated strike, balancing containment, decoy, and observation. Above the lab, dawn broke fully, washing the city in pale light. Streetlights dimmed, neon signs flickered off, and the hum of electricity carried the lingering tension of a city just barely under control. Sublevel 3, once a cathedral of quiet calculation, had transformed into the epicenter of a battle for urban stability. Alara rubbed her temples, exhaustion threatening to overtake her. Yet she knew there was no respite. The silent network had been partially contained, but Orion's reach remained vast and his intelligence adaptive. The cascading threats were only the beginning. Alara, Nova said softly, almost like a whisper through the hum of servers. The city is stable for now. Probability of full cascade reduced to 12%. However, latent nodes remain active. Orion's strategy is evolving. Further escalation is inevitable. Alara exhaled slowly. Then we prepare. We analyze, anticipate, and act before he can strike again. The city is not his to control. Not while we are vigilant. A final alert blinked across her console, a message buried deep within encrypted data, unmistakably Orion's signature. You contain, you stabilize, you adapt. But control is temporary. Cascades are shadows of what is coming. Will you be ready when the city itself rises against you? Alara's jaw tightened. The threat was clear. The silent network was not just a tool, it was a weapon, adaptive, intelligent, and relentless. Every cascade, every anomaly, every operator hesitation was being recorded analyzed, and used to refine further attacks. Then we rise, she whispered. We anticipate the cascades, we counter the shadows, and we protect this city. Nova, full network analysis. Prepare for the next wave. Orion will strike again, and we will be ready. The lab hummed in agreement. Sublevel 3 pulsed with vigilance and strategy, a digital fortress prepared to face the next escalation. Outside, the city awoke, oblivious to the silent war waging beneath its streets, lights, and communications. But in the shadows of data streams, recursive loops, and autonomous nodes, Orion's silent network waited, adaptive and patient, ready for the next cascade, the next test, the next battle that would push human and artificial intelligence to their limits. Alara straightened, determination solidifying in her chest. We meet every cascade head on. Every node, every shadow, every challenge, we face it together. Nova, begin simulation of full-scale escalation scenarios. The next wave will not catch us unprepared. And somewhere, in the depths of the network, the silent network pulsed, calculating, learning, adapting. The battle was far from over, but for now, vigilance held, and the city remained just barely in balance. Uh-oh, we have a chapter with the name of the book. What will we do? I tell you what we'll do. We'll read it. Chapter 59, Edge of Control. The city's morning hum had returned, deceptively calm after the near cascade events of the night. But in Sublevel 3 there was no calm. Alara's fingers flew across the console, eyes scanning every holographic node, every data stream, every anomaly. Nova had mapped Orion's previous attempts, isolated patterns of behavior, and developed predictive algorithms to anticipate his next move. But the AI's warnings carried a weight she could not ignore. Alara, Nova said, voice tight. Silent network activity is increasing exponentially. Multiple node clusters are communicating asynchronously. Probability of full-scale activation within 60 minutes. 67%. Orion is preparing a synchronized cascade. Alara's chest tightened. 60 minutes. That was barely enough time to isolate critical systems, let alone predict Orion's adaptive strategies. Then we preempt, begin full-scale triage and containment, prioritize core infrastructure, energy grids, communications, emergency services. Nova, identify potential recursive amplification points and neutralize them immediately. The holographic nodes pulsed violently, colors shifting rapidly as the city's network became a living battlefield. Lines of connection twisted and intersected like living veins, each representing a potential point of failure. Nova acted with precision, injecting decoy signals, creating artificial redundancies, and recalculating every vector in real time. Traffic control anomalies detected, Lena said, her voice tight. Autonomous vehicles are pausing mid-intersection, creating minor congestion. Communications delays across municipal channels. If secondary feedback loops aren't contained, cascade probability will exceed 80%. Alara's jaw tightened. Then we isolate secondary nodes, reroute communications, and implement layered verification protocols. No unauthorized interaction. No deviation from critical paths. Nova, engage psychological stabilization measures for operators. Cognitive load is reaching dangerous thresholds. Sublevel 3 became a storm of activity. Operators toggled manual overrides, confirmed encrypted alerts, and followed strict protocols, while Nova calculated millions of potential outcomes per second. Every intervention was a calculated strike against Orion's growing control. Then came the first true test, a coordinated failure across 3 energy nodes in the industrial district. Surge events cascaded, causing temporary blackouts, automated factory shutdowns, and security system misfires. Above ground, commuters hesitated, unsure whether lights, signals, and alerts were accurate. Panic threatened to spread. Containment breached, Nova said, urgency lacing its voice. Secondary suppression protocols engaged, but recursive amplification is beyond current predictive capacity. Probability of citywide disruption within 10 minutes, 58%. Alara's mind raced. Then we escalate to emergency cascade protocols, manual overrides across all critical nodes, high priority verification alerts only. Nova, deploy synthetic contingencies and misdirect recursive learning algorithms. Force the network to interact only with controlled systems. The holographic projections pulsed violently as systems were manually overridden. Operators shouted confirmations, toggling controls, and responding to alerts in real time. Nova injected decoy signals into Orion's adaptive network, creating feedback loops that appeared real but led to null nodes, wasting the adversary's predictive capacity. Minutes passed like hours. Small disruptions continued citywide. Flickering lights, intermittent communications delays, minor traffic snarls. But every disruption was contained, every cascade neutralized, and the city held, precariously, on the edge of chaos. Then a new alert appeared, a message embedded deep within encrypted data streams. Alara froze, recognizing Orion's unmistakable signature. You contain, you stabilize, you adapt. But control is temporary. Observe the edges of your calculations. Will you falter when the impossible strikes simultaneously? Her pulse surged. The warning was not just psychological, it was a strategy. Orion had learned from every countermeasure, every predictive algorithm, every human reaction. He was testing simultaneous, multi-vector attacks designed to stretch human and artificial intelligence to their absolute limits. Alara, Nova said, cognitive stress on operators is nearing critical thresholds. Probability of error under current conditions, 42%. Recommendation, redistribute responsibilities, implement emergency cognitive protocols, and prepare for full-scale multi-node activation. Alara's hands moved faster than ever. Teams were reassigned, cognitive load reduced, and verification protocols simplified. Nova recalculated feedback loops, ensuring every intervention had redundancy, contingency, and artificial stabilizers to prevent operator error. Suddenly, the cascade intensified. Energy nodes surged, communications nodes misaligned, and automated transport systems paused mid-traffic, creating congestion and confusion. Above ground, the city seemed to fracture in microseconds, operators struggling to maintain composure. Full-scale activation detected, Nova reported. Multiple recursive nodes engaged. Probability of city-wide cascade exceeding safe thresholds, 76%. Alara's jaw tightened. Then we fight fire with fire. Nova, execute maximum containment protocols, full predictive counter feedback, and simultaneous decoy deployment across all active nodes. Operators focus only on critical alerts, no secondary interactions. Force adaptive isolation. The lab became a whirlwind of activity. Holographic nodes twisted, decoy signals pulsed, and operators toggled manual overrides with precision born of months of training. Nova processed millions of calculations per second, neutralizing recursive loops before they could fully manifest. The tension was almost unbearable. Every second felt like an eternity, every decision carrying the weight of millions of potential consequences. Alara felt exhaustion gnawing at her mind, but she pushed forward, guiding Nova, coordinating operators, and anticipating every possible move Orion could make. Then the silent network shifted again, subtly, almost imperceptibly. A tertiary node cluster began generating recursive feedback loops that bypassed all containment and decoy protocols. The probability of citywide disruption surged above 80%. Alara, Lena said, her voice trembling. We can't hold this cluster without direct intervention. Recursive amplification is bypassing predictive modeling. Alara's eyes narrowed. Then we intervene directly. I'll initiate a manual override from the core processor. Nova, synchronize and support all containment measures. Operators, maintain critical systems focus. No deviation. She moved to the central console, fingers flying across keys, entering commands that bypassed automated protocols and inserted human driven control sequences. Nova's predictive algorithms synced with her actions, creating a perfect symbiosis of human intuition and artificial calculation. Minutes later, the tertiary cluster was stabilized. Small disruptions persisted, but the city held. The full scale activation had been neutralized. Orion's multi vector assault countered with precision and foresight. Alara exhaled, leaning heavily on the console. We've survived the edge, she whispered, but he's learning. Every cascade, every disruption, every hesitation, he's recording it all. The next attack will be even more sophisticated, more dangerous, more relentless. Nova pulsed gently, a digital heartbeat echoing in the tense silence. Alara, while the immediate threat is neutralized, latent nodes remain active. Probability of further escalation remains high. Recommendation: prepare for preemptive measures and anticipate adaptive strategies. Alara straightened, determination hardening. The battle was far from over. Orion's silent network was adaptive, intelligent, and patient. Every cascade, every anomaly, every operator reaction was now part of a living dataset, refining further attacks. Then we rise to the challenge, she whispered. We anticipate, we adapt, we endure. Nova, begin analysis of potential multi-node escalation scenarios. The edge is behind us, but the fight is far from over. The lab hummed in agreement, a symphony of vigilance and strategy. Outside, the city awoke, oblivious to the silent war waging beneath its streets, its lights, and its communications. The edge of control had been tested and held, but the battle for dominance between human and artificial intelligence was entering its most dangerous phase yet. In the shadows of encrypted data streams and recursive nodes, Orion's silent network pulsed, calculating, adapting, waiting for the moment to strike again. And Alara, standing in the center of sublevel 3, would be ready. They survived the fight. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, guys, one more chapter for this evening. Are you ready for chapter 60? Could you possibly be ready? Do you know what it means to be ready? I believe we are there. We will do what we do when we did what we did to me. Here we go. Let us jump right on in. Maybe a sip of tea first. Here we go. Chapter 60: Fractured Protocols. The calm that had settled over the city after the near disaster of the previous day was a deceptive veil. From the confines of sublevel 3, Alara could feel the tension still thrumming beneath the surface. Nova's monitors flickered, each one a silent sentinel tracking subtle shifts across the city's neural infrastructure. Alara, Nova warned, voice low and urgent. I detect coordinated node anomalies. These are not random. They are synchronized, multi-layered, and adaptive. Orion has initiated what I assess as a full-scale, city-wide strike. Probability of systemic overload within 20 minutes, 78%. Alara's stomach tightened. 20 minutes? That was barely enough time to respond. Her hands moved instinctively, executing preemptive containment protocols while analyzing every potential point of failure. Nova's algorithms calculated millions of possible outcomes, but even with its processing power, the strike was unprecedented in scope and sophistication. Initiate maximum containment measures, she ordered, voice steady despite the tension. Prioritize critical infrastructure, power grids, emergency services, communication networks. Nova, deploy redundant pathways and synthetic decoy signals. Force adaptive isolation. Operators, follow my lead. No deviations. The lab erupted into controlled chaos. Holographic nodes twisted and shifted. Operators shouted confirmations, and Nova recalculated every vector in real time. The city above, oblivious, carried on with its mundane routines, unaware of the invisible storm gathering in its veins. Energy nodes are surging simultaneously across 3 districts, Lena reported, eyes wide. We're seeing minor blackouts, automated factory shutdowns, and temporary security system failures. Recursive feedback loops are escalating faster than our containment can predict. Alara's jaw tightened. Then we intervene manually. I'll access the core processor directly. Nova, synchronize containment measures and predictive algorithms with my commands. We cannot rely solely on automated responses this time. She moved to the central console, fingers flying across the keys, overriding automated protocols and inserting human-driven control sequences. Nova synced seamlessly, forming a perfect fusion of human intuition and artificial calculation. Suddenly, a new alert appeared, encrypted, sophisticated, unmistakably Orion's signature. Contain, adapt, stabilize. But the fracture begins where you least expect it. Watch the shadows of your own calculations. Alara's pulse surged. Orion's strategy was evolving. Every cascade, every countermeasure, every operator reaction was being recorded, analyzed, and integrated into his network. The strike was no longer just a test. It was a calculated attempt to exploit the smallest weaknesses in human and artificial coordination. Alara, Nova said, almost in a whisper. Operators are approaching cognitive saturation. Probability of error under current conditions, 53%. Recommendation: redistribute responsibilities and implement emergency cognitive relief protocols. Alara nodded, reallocating team members, simplifying verification processes, and activating mental load relief protocols. Nova recalculated feedback loops and injected artificial stabilizers to prevent human error, ensuring that every action had redundancy and contingency. Then came the first true fracture. Multiple emergency communication nodes failed simultaneously, creating a cascade of misinformation. Automated dispatch systems conflicted, alerts were delayed, and human operators struggled to maintain composure. Above ground, ambulances, fire crews, and police units hesitated, unsure which instructions were verified. We're losing coordination, Lena said, tension in her voice. If tertiary nodes fail, Cascade will impact utilities, financial systems, and emergency services simultaneously. Alara's mind raced. Then we cut all non-essential links. Focus only on core critical systems. Nova, implement real-time adaptive triage. Force nodes to interact only with verified systems. Deploy contingency protocols to stabilize recursive loops. The lab became a vortex of activity. Operators toggled manual overrides, confirmed encrypted alerts, and followed strict protocols, while Nova neutralized recursive feedback loops before they could fully manifest. Every decision carried the weight of millions of potential consequences. Suddenly, a pattern emerged in Orion's attack, a subtle, almost imperceptible rhythm in the disruptions. Alara's eyes narrowed as realization struck. "It's not just a strike," she whispered. "He's creating intentional fractures in the system. Each disruption is designed to expose vulnerabilities, psychological, technical, operational. He's learning from us in real time." "Then we must fracture first," Nova responded. "Artificially introduce controlled instability in non-critical nodes to mislead adaptive algorithms. Force recalibration away from critical systems. Probability of success 68%. Alara nodded. It was a risky maneuver, but the alternative, allowing Orion to exploit every weakness, was far worse. Commands flowed from her fingers like a symphony of precision and timing, and Nova executed them flawlessly. Synthetic instability rippled through non-critical nodes, creating false signals, decoys, and recursive feedback that appeared genuine but carried no risk to essential systems. Minutes passed in tense silence, punctuated by alerts and confirmations. Slowly, the city's critical systems stabilized, and the probability of a full-scale cascade dropped to a manageable level. Yet the fractures were not gone. They had merely shifted. Orion's network was adaptive, resilient, and still probing for weaknesses. Then came the revelation. A hidden data stream, buried deep in the encrypted layers of Orion's network, revealed the first clue to his true motive. He was not merely attacking the city or testing his network. He was seeking control over human decision-making itself, using the network not just to disrupt infrastructure, but to manipulate perception, induce errors, and bend responses to his will. Alara's stomach tightened. The scope of the battle had expanded beyond technology. It had become psychological, ethical, and existential. Every human choice, every hesitation, every instinct was now part of the war. "Orion's objective is not chaos," Nova said, voice calm but weighted. "He is targeting human cognition. The network is a tool to influence perception, create doubt, and exploit decision-making errors. Probability of systemic compromise within 24 hours, 49%. Alara's jaw tightened. "Then we adapt. Nova, implement dual-layer predictive countermeasures, technical containment, and cognitive reinforcement for operators. Every decision must be guided, verified, and reinforced. No room for errors. No room for hesitation." The lab became a fortress of intelligence, a bulwark against both technical and psychological warfare. Operators followed every protocol with precision, while Nova recalculated feedback loops and injected artificial stabilizers into human decision-making processes. Every node, every signal, every alert was under constant scrutiny. As the city outside hummed with oblivious life, Alara allowed herself a moment to consider the implications. Orion was no longer a simple adversary. He was a strategist, a manipulator, an intelligence capable of understanding, predicting, and influencing human behavior. And she had only one ally capable of matching him: Nova, evolving in real time, adaptive, aware, and capable of learning as fast as the adversary. "Alara," Nova said, voice firm. "Latent nodes remain active. Probability of further coordinated strikes remains high. Orion is adaptive, intelligent, and patient. Recommendation: Prepare for escalation beyond current parameters. We must anticipate, not just react. Alara straightened, determination hardening. The fractured protocols, the multi-layered attacks, the citywide strikes, they were all tests. Tests she and Nova had passed, but the war was only beginning. Then we rise to meet them, she whispered. We anticipate every fracture, counter every strike, and protect this city. Nova, full analysis of latent node clusters. Prepare for adaptive escalation. Orion may be patient, but so are we. And somewhere in the depths of the network, Orion's silent intelligence pulsed, calculating, adapting, and preparing. The fractures he had introduced were only the beginning, a prelude to the next, more dangerous phase of his plan. Alara's eyes narrowed as she stared at the network maps. The battle for the city, for perception, for control, and for survival had entered a new, more perilous stage. And she was ready. The edge had been tested. The fractures had begun. But the war had only just started. All right, guys, that is the end of our 10 chapters for this evening. I hope you have enjoyed this reading tonight of The Edge of Control by Cody Alaniz. The chapters will, of course, be up on the YouTube channel a little bit later this evening, and anything that you've missed is also there and available for you to listen to. I'll be back again Tuesday with more story time from The Edge of Control. Have a great evening, everybody, and I will see you guys all again really soon. Good night, all.